What's up guys and welcome to this. This is your SOS Wrestletalk TNA Impact review for the 25th of January 2024. I'm your host LK from the SOS Wrestletalk. If you haven't done so already, hit the like button, drop a comment, your thoughts and opinions on this week's episode of TNA Impact, and smash the subscribe button, hit the notification button to know when each and every video gets uploaded. There's so much for you to watch over the course of this week on the channel. Thank you so much everyone who has watched already. Looking forward to diving into this episode of TNA. So do you guys give this show a thumbs up, give the show a thumbs in the middle, or do you give this show a thumbs down? I'm going to give the show in between a thumbs in the middle and a thumbs up. The show wasn't absolutely phenomenal, but it felt like a quick watch. It felt like we're developing some stories with kind of a six-man tag at the end, which didn't really have much storyline ramifications, but still had, you know, a Kazuchika Okada appearance and a Kazuchika Okada wrestling match, which in a non-WWE ring at this point I'm going to take for granted. And I'll get onto Okada as the show goes on, but the show started off with a Cross the Line video package open, which, if you know, you're a fan of TNA through the kind of 07 to kind of 2010 era, that was peak TNA. At least that was for me anyway. Obviously people who are much older than myself, who grew up watching the 2002 Asylum era, may say that's better, or the 2004-05 era where Kurt Angle joined the company, but for me 07 to 2010 was peak TNA, and then we only went downhill from there. But it was cool to see that intro, a bit of nostalgia for those long-term TNA fans. So this show took place from Las Vegas, taped right after Hard to Kill. The next two episodes will be airing will be what was taped in Orlando, Florida. So a new set, we'll see if the set's identical, we'll see if it's a good sized crowd, hopefully it is. And hopefully the crowd are as good and lively as they were for the Hard to Kill and the TV tapings after, because this crowd was good all night, and we'll give them that. So opening match of the night, we had Chris Bay, one half of the TNA Tag Team Champions, along part of ABC, with facing off with Kevin Knight. And I haven't seen Knight, I'm going to be honest with you. He had a cup of coffee with when it was Impact Wrestling a while back. I haven't seen him, but he's advertised for next week's show, so it's a guy they're building. And like what I said on last week's TNA Impact review, I love the fact they kicked off with an X Division six-way scramble match. I thought that was a great way to kick off the show. It made the crowd really lively, made the crowd hot, and was really good. And this is no different. It was a good way to kick off the show, X Division style. That's what they should do every fucking week, man. Have an X Division match. It doesn't have to be a championship match. It doesn't even have to be a number contenders match. But having that sort of fast-paced action to start the show really is decent, better than a fucking long monologue of a promo. So this one obviously had good fast-paced back and forth work. The crowd are behind Bay, as you'd expect, because Vegas is his hometown. Bay got the win with the art of finesse. Crowd were into it, and like I said, every week I want to see an X Division match open up the show. Just because it's a great way to start any wrestling show. WCW used to do it all the time back in the day with their pay-per-views, starting off with a cruiserweight match. And there's no different there, and I think it's what TNA used to be all about, having the X Division on first. You know, remember the first ever episode of TNA Impact on Spike? You had AJ Styles versus Roderick Strong in an X Division match to kick off the show. What a career both of them have gone on to have. And we went backstage, but good match. Good match there, Chris Bay and Kevin Knight. Looking forward to seeing what Kevin Knight does next. Looking forward to what goes on. And also, there was a post-match attack before I jump that. There was a post-match attack from the Grizzled Young Veterans. They're attacking the ABC. Obviously, last week they screamed in the camera that they're coming for the TNA Tag Team Championships, and I was praying to heaven and Lord on that show that we do get that, and that's exactly what we got, and that's really good to see. Grizzled Young Vets look like, touch wood, they're staying with the company. And that's something I want. I want them to be on the full-time roster. I want to see them on every TV taping. I want to see them on every pay-per-view. We then have a backstage promo of Rich Swann. He was talking to Kazarian, asking him why he attacked Eric Young last week. And Kazarian says, I'll say what I need to say next week, but judging by your career, maybe you should do something similar. And I thought that was really good. Really, you know, you're touching on the fact the story's there. You're building next week of, well, why did Frankie Kazarian attack him? And, you know, Kazarian with this new heel role, I think is really important. I really do think Kazarian, obviously in AEW, is doing lots of stuff on Dark. I remember when he was like the Bullet Club Hunter, that was cool, that was a good gimmick, and obviously the stuff he did at the start of AEW with Kazarian and Scorpio Sky was really fun. But besides that, he wasn't really doing much. He was winning matches on Dark, but he wasn't featured in the story. And here, he's featured in the story. And it'll be interesting to see with this new heel turn. It'll be fresh. You'll have fresh opponents facing the baby faces this time, even a Rich Swann. It's something that I'm looking forward to, and hopefully they build this well, and you could really build an established heel. They don't really have any mid-card belts, but I wouldn't mind seeing Kazarian go back after the X Division Championship. Kazarian versus Chris Sabin, two TNA OGs. That's something that does interest me. And anyway, then AJ Francis, and there's a lot of hype online, alright, about AJ Francis. Now, I don't know if I'm in the minority here, because at least on my social media feed, follow me on Twitter at LKWrestling. I don't really need to grow on that fucker. Back in the day I had thousands of followers, but I deleted the account and I started a new one. So go follow it at LKWrestling, because you might be still following the old account, which is no longer active. I shouldn't have deleted that, but Nimrods can be Nimrods. And I'm seeing people kind of praise the guy, and he's charismatic enough. I think he's a good promo, but I just don't get why there's a reason why he got canned. You know what I mean? He's good on the mic, but I don't really care. Maybe TNA will be good for him. Maybe this time next year he's involved in some big time matches at Hard to Kill, Rebellion, whatever the pay-per-view after is. Maybe he will be, and I'll be eating my words. Maybe he really is a charismatic, great wrestler. But from what I've seen, and I haven't seen much, because as I said on my Raw review and my Raw Rumble pay-per-view preview and predictions video last year, I just watched the dirty pay-per-views, didn't watch the week-to-week episodes of SmackDown, didn't watch the week-to-week episodes of Raw like I'll be doing now. So I didn't really know who the fuck this dude is. Obviously I saw on social media and on YouTube that he did a botched Tope con Hilo at one point to the floor. But besides that, I didn't really know anything about it. So to him being in the company isn't a big deal to me. Doesn't really mean much. But I'm going to give the chance. And, this time next year we'll come back, we'll regather our thoughts and analyse if, this guy is actually any good. He cuts a promo, again, same backstage vignette. Talking to Swan, says he will be in his corner when he faces Stephen Hendry. Not Stephen Hendry, that's a fucking snooker player. Unbelievable. Snooker on the mind. Snooker. Sound like I'm a 50-year-old man. No, I like a bit of snooker, nothing beats. Alright, hear me out. And again, as I've said on all these shows this week, if you're new to the channel, or if you're with the channel for a long time but haven't heard me, I go off on tangents. So, I could talk about this and end up over here, and some people like that. Some people really enjoyed that part of the game, the arsenal, the repertoire, where I'll just go here, there, and everywhere. But snooker is one of those things, right, where I bet you this will be the only podcast in the history of all of the wrestling podcasts that talks about snooker. Snooker is one of those things where if I've got any afternoon or evening, and I'm tired, and I'm like, what, I fancy a cup of tea. Have a nice bath. I won't have a shower. I have a nice bath, right? And then I'll get out, I'll put my pajamas on, whack the dressing gown on, make a nice cup of tea, maybe even a couple of shortbreads to dunk in and watch the snooker, and I find it quite refreshing, quite enjoyable. Anyway, so I've written on my notes, right, this is the joys of not being one of these people who just don't actually watch the show and they just read the results to you. I don't know if they still happen. Back in the day, there was loads of reviewers that wouldn't actually watch a show, they would just kind of read and then rant, which is really strange. I've got Hendry, and Joe Hendry, that's the fucker, Joe Hendry. And that's a shame, because I really like Joe Hendry, the stuff he's done in TNA so far, and what he did in ICW. I used to always watch the clips on YouTube, thought it was really funny. But he says that Joe Hendry will be wrestling Rich Swann in Explosion. Explosion is back. I think that'll be on TNA Plus. Hopefully they just put it on fucking YouTube as well. But they want to put it behind a paywall, fair play to them. And if the show's only an hour long and it features a new match and a classic match like it did back in the day, I'm up for it. But I'll give the show a watch. Especially if it's featuring matches like Joe Hendry, Rich Swann. We're not kind of being really low in the totem pole of wrestlers' orders, and we're actually getting some kind of big time matches, then I'll give the show a watch. Then we had Dirty Dango. Speaking of Explosion, we have the WWE Superstars team. When I refer to Superstars, I mean the TV show Superstars. I remember I used to watch that all the time. We had Dirty Dango and Vladimir Kozlov. facing off and squashing two local talents. It was a squash match with building up Dirty Dango and Kozlov. I like the fact that Dirty Dango, every time before a match, he says, "I hate TNA," and then goes silent. Crowd hate it. Crowd boo. It's just simple heat. Again, we're getting another team into this tag division, so I'm all for it. I'm really all for it. Then we have another backstage promo, this time with the grizzled young veterans. They cut a really good promo about, wanting to be the champions, and ABC interrupt. And then Santino, the general manager of Impact, obviously it's their backstage vignette, comes in and says we're going to have the best of 3 series for this, and that starts next week. And I said that last week. Hopefully these guys have something similar to what the Motor City Machine Guns and Beer Money had back in 2011, 2010 time, where they had the best of 7 series. It's not a best of 7, it's best of 3, but it's for the tag belts, so that will start next week, so I'm looking forward to that. Then we have a rematch from Hard to Kill, with the Knockouts Championship on the line. We have Jordan Grace defending against Trinity. This is Trinity's rematch from the Hard to Kill event, and I wonder if this is the last time we'll see Trinity in the TNA ring. Will she be wrestling for WWE following tomorrow's Royal Rumble? And if you haven't done so already, check out the WWE Royal Rumble pay-per-view preview and predictions video I have recently uploaded. So this match was a pretty damn good match, actually. It was really short, and not really short as in the squash match. You're kind of looking at kind of under 10 minutes, and the Hard to Kill match felt quite long. It was definitely 20 minutes. So this, for being a TV match and a championship match, it was the perfect length. It was kind of 10 minutes, and there was a really nice deadlift superplex from Jordan Grace, really good back and forth, some good near falls until Trinity applied the Starstruck, but then Grace rolls that up into a cradle to get the victory and retain. This was enjoyable. It really, really was. I think it was better, in my opinion, than the Hard to Kill match because it was shorter. They kind of got their stuff in, and it was all high spots. Crowd were really into it. TNA chants, as you'd expect from the TNA faithful in Vegas. And then Samuel's post-match attacks. Bam, we build our next feud. Samuels against Gazelle Shaw. So I don't know why I put Samuels. I don't know what was wrong with me this morning. I hadn't had my morning Weetabix, my morning porridge. Shaw attacks Jordan Grace and Trinity, building up, because obviously Shaw won the 6 Women's Knockouts Ultimate X match at Hard to Kill, so she's the next challenger. So we're laying out the feud for Shaw versus Grace. Obviously we have not a pay-per-view in February, we have a special on Saturday or a Sunday night. That will be on TNA Plus. Go subscribe to that if you haven't already, and I'll be covering that show. And if that's the match on there, perfection. I don't know why I wrote Samuels. I don't know why I said Hendry's name wrong. I don't know what's going on with me. It's what I get for writing notes like an old man, like Dirty Dave Meltzer. That's how I write notes. I remember back in the day I used to have a stack full of notes. They're all in the bin now. Wish I kept them, some nostalgia. I just find it easier, because especially when you're doing a podcast of 2, sometimes you have thoughts and you kind of write it down and jot it down rather than having it on the keyboard, and you can hear me typing on the keyboard. It's fucking horrible. But we went to a backstage promo with Josh Alexander. He's basically asking what's next. He defeated Will Ospreay in what was an incredible match last week. If you haven't watched it yet, it's on YouTube. The full match is on YouTube. Please go check out Will Ospreay vs Josh Alexander 2 from TNA Impact last week. And then also, while you're there, go check out the first one from Bound for Glory 2023 with Josh Alexander and Will Ospreay, because that, my friends, was a belter. Then Alan Angels comes into the building, into the area, and says Josh Alexander will be the first guest on Soundcheck, a host show that Alan Angels is going to have, and Alexander accepts, and Angels marks out, excited that Josh Alexander is going to be the first guest on Soundcheck. I'm game for it. It's a TV show. You need to build. So, if you want to have... I have no issue with, like, Miz TV, Cutting Edge, Pipers. I have no issue with them, because they do build stuff. So it's not just kind of a pointless talk show. So I'm game for it. Gives Alan Angel something to do. I always enjoyed his work in AEW. So it'll be good to see him get his teeth stuck into something here in TNA. Then we had Nic Nemeth. He wrestled Zachary Wentz. And this is Nemeth's, aka Dolph Ziggler's, TNA debut. In his first match since leaving WWE, his first match in 20 years in a non-WWE ring, and that is incredible. That is absolutely incredible. It was really cool to see. Obviously, you guys know I'm a big fan of Ziggler. If you watch WWE from kind of 2012 till kind of 2016, you really were a big Ziggler fan. You really were. And this was a really good match. I liked Nemeth using, in my notes are at Ziggler, that's going to be difficult. Using the technical works, obviously the big amateur background. He never really got to do that much in WWE, so it's cool to see him use that. There was some good near falls of Wentz, doing lots of roll-ups. Wentz hit this really nice full Nelson into a side slam. That was really nice. And then Nemeth ducked a super kick and hit the zigzag to get the win. This was decent. Again, it was about 10 minutes long. Nemeth gave to Wentz. He really did. He gave him a lot. So Wentz it didn't look like a squash. In theory, on paper, you look at that, you go squash. But Nemeth made him look good, which then made the win look better. And then post-match, Steve Macklin comes out, attacks Nemeth, got some great heat, and then Nemeth hit the zigzag on him, which is building up Steve Macklin versus Nic Nemeth, which is hopefully at that February TNA special. We don't really know what's going on with the world title. What I mean by that is we don't know who's the next challenger. Obviously, Moose won the championship, hard to kill. We don't know who the next challenger is. So, touch wood, starting next week, we kind of get some build to an upcoming TNA Plus special. I think it's Sacrifice coming up in February. It's no Surrender, then March is February. So hopefully we get some build to a championship match. If not, Nemeth versus Macklin is something you could definitely build the whole show around, because they've done a good job of building that last week with the promo. Praised that to nauseum last week, and then also here with the attack. Nemeth looked good. Nemeth looked strong. In the match, Nemeth can go one-on-one with Macklin, and in a 20-plus minute match, and Macklin can come out of that looking better than he did going into it, winning without winning, winning in defeat, the old saying goes. But yeah, good match. It wasn't phenomenal, wasn't the 5-star classic. It was just a good, solid match where Nemeth took some bumps, sold like a motherfucker like he does best, and got the win. So he looked good. It was a really well booked kind of match there. Then we had Danny Luna and Jody Threat taking on MK Ultra, which was Kitty Kelly and Masha Slamovich. Again, as I said last week, the depth of the Knockouts division, I'm not all for these, big-time wrestling companies having multiple women's championships when there isn't that much depth in a roster. I think it's really pointless and counterproductive, because then the belts don't mean anything because everyone's got one. Whereas in TNA, they have so many women. And that's such a good thing. It really is, because the depth in the Knockouts division is really good, because you have multiple challengers for the Knockouts Championship, and you've got multiple challengers in the tag division as well. Ultra got the win here with a double Tiger Driver on Jody Threat, which looked nasty. The landing did not look very nice, but again, building up to them, they'll presumably head on to No Surrender in February to challenge the Decay for the Knockouts Tag Team Championships and rematch from Hard to Kill. Then we had a video package promoting next week's show, so we'll have Nic Nemeth versus the other member of the Rascals, Trey Miguel. That should be fun. We'll hear from Frankie Kazarian. We have Bryan Myers versus Kevin Knight. Good to see Knight back in there. And I think with the system, I think Myers and Ed, they could do this one of two ways. Myers could go for the X Division Championship, Edwards could go after the Digital Media Championship, or the other way around, or they could both go for the tag belts, because at some point with the system you will want them to have all the belts, and I wouldn't actually mind if Edwards got after the X Division Championship, former X Division champion. Myers goes after the Digital Media Championship, wins it. They both then win the Tag Team Championships, and they completely have control of all the belts in the company. That's something that I would really dig. Similar to what they did with the Main Event Mafia back in 2008, where they had all the championships, and then they could be the big heels, and you really establish them and move on from there. And also we'll have the first match of the Best of 3 series for the TNA Tag Team Championships as ABC defends against the Grizzled Young Veterans in what will be a belter. Hopefully that's the main event. Hopefully given at least 20-25 minutes, because that'll be absolutely amazing. So guys, make sure you watch TNA Impact next week on whatever the fuck platform you've got to watch it on. Then we have the main event. We have the System, Moose, Eddie Edwards and Bryan Myers taking on the Motor City Machine Guns and Kazuchika Okada. Obviously, Moose is the TNA World Champion, Chris Sabin is the current X Division Champion, and Okada is 1/3 of the New Japan Pro Wrestling's never openweight 6-man tag team champions. Great pop from Okada as soon as his music hits. Really was a good pop, and I never thought I'd see Okada in a TNA ring ever again. The use of Okada back in the day was fucking criminal. Apparently Scott D'Amore, according to online, was apologetic as anything to the New Japan officials, as you'd expect. The use of Okada, considering what Okada went on to become, a multiple-time IWGP World Champion, G1 Climax winner, New Japan Cup winner, done everything, main event at the Tokyo Dome, main event at Budokan. He'd done it all. There's not a thing Okada in New Japan Pro Wrestling hasn't done, and done well. And the fact that that talent was in TNA's hands just shows the kind of direction the company was heading in that time. He was doing matches on Explosion. This is fucking Okada. Like, it wasn't as if this was a guy who then went back to New Japan and did nothing for 10 years and then drastically became a star. This is a guy who went over there and straight away, bam, Tanahashi, bam, 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 champion. You know, it's speechless. But even little things like Okada just touching the TNA logo in the ring, like he's happy to be there, was just a really nice touch. Okada and Moose, what great exchanges all throughout this match. Absolutely phenomenal. Give me this in the G1. Oh wait, we fucking can't. And I wrote that down in my notes there. I put Okada Moose, good exchange. Give me in the G1. And I put a sad face next to it because I realised, oh shit, Kazuchika Okada will no longer be in New Japan Pro Wrestling, and that's something that I feel like this week I've touched on every fucking show, and I've talked about it to nauseum, but Kazuchika Okada is leaving New Japan. I'm very upset about that. He has been bonus news if you listen to this, you're a New Japan fan, he has been added to a couple of dates in the New Beginning tour at the end of February, so his match with Tanahashi on the 11th isn't his finale. It will be whichever match, said to TBA, to be announced, so it'll be interesting. I hope they do Okada versus Narita, and I hope they do Okada versus Fujita. That's what I hope. But if you're listening to this and you're just a TNA fan and you're kind of interested about getting into New Japan after watching Okada, go to njpwworld.com, sign up, will be worth your time, and you can follow along with me and Dion as we give our coverage of New Japan Pro Wrestling, the king of sports. There was a really loud fuck the system chants. The crowds were really into this, and again, the chemistry of, I just keep writing that down, the chemistry of Moose and Okada in this one is something I really want to see. Before Okada goes, I want to see on that February special, that No Surrender TNA Plus special, Okada versus Moose. I don't know if that's possible because of the time scale, obviously with Okada being in Japan, but I want to see that. I really, really do. Really fast-paced back and forth. The match came to an end when Myers went for a spear. Okada hit the best dropkick in pro wrestling, and then the Rainmaker and Shelley hit the Shell Shock to get the win. This is a fun six-man tag. It didn't really have any ramifications. It didn't mean anything. It was, we have Okada, we want to put him in a six-man tag with the Guns against the system, the big heels. You know, Myers is there to take the fall. Fair play to him, took it well. Makes sense to have him against Kevin Knight next week. We can build Bryan Myers. Maybe this could be the restart for Myers and really build and push the guy. I mean, he's been around for fucking what feels like all of my fucking existence, and he's not a bad wrestler. So I'm all up for it. But overall, this was a fun show. It really, really was. There's not really anything to moan about, you know. And as you could, if a show's shit, I'm gonna say it's shit. It's as simple as that. And this was a good show. It wasn't blow out of your mind amazing. There was no 5-star match, but everything on here made sense. Everything faced the direction that you're heading in. You can kind of get the feel for what the next couple of weeks / months are going to be like, and I'm all for that. So good show. Shout out to the crowd. Everyone in attendance really helped to make this show feel as good as it did. With that in mind, this has been LK. I want to thank you so much for watching. Make sure you check out the Royal Rumble preview and predictions video I did earlier. As far as schedule goes, Sunday night I'll be doing a Royal Rumble review. Unfortunately, I can't do it on live after it airs because it finishes at about 5 AM UK time, and that's not a time in the day you want to be talking to me, listening to me. So with that in mind, guys, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you stay safe, stay well, like, comment, subscribe, do all the good stuff. Stay safe, stay well. I'll be catching your asses.